when I came into Hanford, I noticed it is not the most bike and pedestrian friendly community. We've been designed over years for the automobile, primarily. Okay. Well, we can't undo that. We're not going to tear up everything and do everything new, but we can mitigate. Currently, Hanford has 0 miles of Class 1 trails. And a Class 1 trail is a dedicated pathway separated from traffic physically to make it safe for pedestrian and bicyclists. And we'd like to see that change. And as you know, we're pretty aggressive with our grant writing, but you need to be attached to a plan. Everyone told us, great ideas, but it better be in the plan. Well, this is the plan that will allow us to do that. And one of the key components here is prioritizing disadvantaged communities. And we have that here in Hanford. When you look at our census tract, we have several census tracts that are severely, 99 percentile disadvantaged. And other parts of our city that are very different. So it's very mixed. We have a very mixed economic distribution. In the 1960s, Highway 198 kind of came through town and was a major, major change in transportation. That highway was updated in 2012 to be bigger, faster, straighter. And that really physically and figuratively, in some ways, divided Hanford. And so with that creates a challenge. But I also believe with challenges come great opportunities. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Waters, who's going to talk about one of those opportunities that aligns and fits very well with active transportation and the need to overcome some of those barriers.
Thanks, Brad. I want to briefly talk about a program that we're looking at, grant program that we're looking at to address the things that Brad just mentioned. It's called the Reconnecting Communities Program. And overall, what we're looking at doing is, like Brad mentioned, we want to meet the goals of this active transportation plan. So we're looking at opportunities to create safer and more comfortable active transportation opportunities for residents. We want to make sure that disadvantaged communities are prioritized in whatever type of infrastructure we're planning on building, that they are a priority, and ultimately that whatever we design and whatever we do involves significant community engagement. So, we do feel that this program is a good opportunity for us to be able to do that. So there is currently about $2.57 billion, so that's not a typo, for capital construction projects that help address those things, that encourage active transportation. What they're really looking for, I should mention this grant is a federal grant, it's not a state grant. They're looking for projects that improve walkability and safety and look at ways to encourage affordable transportation. When they say affordable transportation, they're talking primarily about people who walk and cycle, not vehicular transportation. They're looking at projects that mitigate any negative impacts that were associated with the environment and we talk about environment, we're not talking about nature necessarily, but the built environment. So as Brad mentioned, in this case, Hanford has a highway that runs through the middle of it. That makes it difficult for people who may want to go from one side of the town to the other. You have this massive highway that has high speed limits in between that you have to be able to cross somehow. So it's looking at, it does provide funding to help mitigate that impact. The types of projects that they're looking for within this grant program is, again, projects that prioritize disadvantaged communities, projects that improve access to daily needs such as jobs, education, healthcare, food, and recreation. It encourages equitable development. And lastly, that reconnects communities by removing, retrofitting, or mitigating highways or other transportation facilities that create barriers to community connectivity, including mobility, access, economic development. The funding or the request for funding for this grant is due by the end of this month. We are working with a consultant to put together an application package. We do feel like this is a good opportunity. You don't see a lot of grants opportunities that have the word billion at the end of them. So we figured it would be a good opportunity for us to apply. Do want to talk to council a little bit about the proposed project that we're looking at trying to fund. I should mention that this is all very much subject to change at this time. We are applying for the grant funding. If awarded, there's a long engineering process that goes along with this. So keep that in mind as we kind of go through this project. Right now, we've tentatively called this People's Bridge Project. What the proposed project would include is a pedestrian bridge that crosses over 198 near or adjacent to the People's Ditch. Right now, if you've driven by that, you see the ditches there, and you kind of have space on both sides of the ditch. It's unused outside of, for its purpose, which is, conveying water from one direction to another. What we would propose is turning this into a pedestrian bridge and a trail system on each end that would connect people who want to walk or cycle from one side safely to be able to go from one side of town to the other in this direction. We feel that if you look at the grant requirements, it fits that, right? It specifically mentions highways that divide communities and finding ways to get people safe access from one side or the other, and encouraging active transportation. We also feel that it is a strong grant application because it not only is sort of a convenience issue, but it also provides them with direct access to healthcare. And the hospital is located right next to where this proposed bridge would connect to. In addition to that, everyone here is aware, a lot of commercial opportunities there, shopping, employment centers, those type of things. Want to just kind of talk about what pedestrian bridges look like and how they function. This is an example from a pedestrian bridge that was recently built in Palo Alto. This goes over Highway 101. Their bridge, they designed it in this way because they wanted it to have sort of as you can look at it, it almost looks like a railroad sort of feel to it. I thought that was interesting because, Hanford is sort of has obvious ties to the railroad here. And so we would, when applying for this grant funding, we would look at sort of a creative way to design the pedestrian bridge so it wouldn't just look like a cage in the middle of the air that goes over the freeway. It would have to have some interesting design elements. And certainly that's what we would be looking for. It would be something that we'd want to make sure it was safe, so there would be lighting. It would allow for pedestrians to go in each direction, whether they're cyclists or walkers. We really do feel like it would be an asset to the community. Speaking, on active transportation, it also allows us the opportunity to sort of build out a trail network. This provides a fantastic bridge over what we know is a difficult area to cross if you're a pedestrian, right? And this provides that connectivity that we could further build out as we, think about trail systems in the city. So as far as next steps for this grant is concerned, we've already begun, talking to community partners that might have interest in this. Brian and I and Brad have already met with several individuals who have shown a significant amount of support for the grant application. The grant is due, the grant application is due on the 28th, but we know that if awarded the grant, that's just the beginning, right? If we are awarded the grant, there will be a significant amount of outreach where we would work with community partners, hold public hearings, things like that, where we would get input from the community to make sure that whatever we're delivering is something that everyone can be proud of. Again, Brad and I have spent a lot of time sort of talking about different ideas, and we think it needs to be something that reflects sort of the community's history and heritage. One of the reasons we sort of tentatively thought that People's Bridge might be a good name for it is that we could provide information on the bridge itself about the different people who have either immigrated or live in Hanford, that it is sort of a celebration of the history of the community. So the goal would be to serve two purposes. It would be an interesting landmark in the city, and it would allow for pedestrians to move freely from one side of the city to the other. So wanted to bring this up to council because it is, again, closely tied to this active transportation plan, and it's also something that we think is going to be an asset to the community if we do get funded.